Can you beat Pokemon LeafGreen without catching any Pokemon? Well, the answer is yes, you can. But there is a caveat to it. You have to pick a starter that can learn Cut in order to progress through the game, and since only Bulbasaur and Charmander can learn Cut, we need to decide between those two. Since Bulbasaur is better suited for the first two gyms, and it'll be a while before any other Pokemon can join the team, I'm going to roll with Bulbasaur in this challenge since I'd like all the help I can get. Here are the rules. I can't catch any Pokemon, which means we're going to rely on our starter and any Pokemon we can buy or are gifted along the way, and it's set mode only for more of a challenge. Short, sweet, and to the point. So let's jump in and see how this story unfolds. We begin this challenge at Professor Oak's lab, and we're rolling with Bulbasaur, which we name Herblore, and if you get where I'm going with this, you're a real one. Our rival Kirill chooses Charmander, and we begin our first battle. And to my surprise, his Charmander lands a critical hit on us and wins, meaning the challenge is over, so thank you for watching. Yeah, I'm kidding. After being lectured by Oak about how we're a disappointment, we make our way to Viridian City to give him his parcel, and in return we get a Pokédex and 5 Pokeballs, which of course we can't use, but I'll just hang on to them anyway, because you never know when you might need a Pokeball, even in a challenge like this. We head into Viridian Forest and start taking on the most prestigious bug trainers in the world before almost dying to a Weedle. I use a potion to avoid another hit to my ego, like our rival delivered earlier, and we win the battle. Now we're in Pewter City, and it's time to take on Brock. He leads with a Geodude, which Herblore takes down with ease using Vine Whip. And then in comes Onix, and after enduring a tackle, Herblore once again whips it down in one shot, bringing him to level 15. We learn Poison Powder, Sleep Powder, take our first badge, and begin forging ahead towards Mount Moon. After a couple of battles, Herblore evolves into an Ivysaur. I have some frustrating battles dealing with Pidgeys and Spearows, so a lot of stalling with Poison Powder and Leech Seed here, but nonetheless we make it to Route 4 right before Mount Moon. And before we venture in, we're going to buy a Magikarp from this gentleman in the Pokemon Center for an absolute steal at $500. Yes, you heard that right, $500 for a fish, but not just any fish. A fish with the potential to lead our team to the promised land. We name him Zulrah and enter Mount Moon to take on a flurry of Zubats. After some battles, Herblore gets to level 20, Zulrah is level 10, and we find ourselves in a bit of a pickle with a Rocket Grunt. His Rattata gets Herblore to 4 HP, and I use my last Vine Whip on it, so now I need to take out a Zubat with Leech Seed since my $500 fish can't do anything but flop around. I try putting Zubat to sleep, but miss. He lands a Leech Life that takes me down to 2 HP, and then I miss another Sleep Powder, but thankfully he goes for Supersonic and misses, and I land the Sleep Powder. I use Leech Seed, swap in Zora to get our favorite $500 fish his share of the XP, and eventually Zubat faints and we come out victorious. We make our way to the nerd who's hogging all the fossils, send him packing, and take a fossil of our choosing. I take the Helix fossil here because Omastar's the man, but I don't plan on actually keeping him since Omanite will only be level 5 when we revive him at Cinnabar Island, and I don't like the sound of getting him caught up to speed with the rest of the team. We make it out of Mount Moon, and now we're heading into Cerulean City. As we head towards Nugget Bridge, our rival Kirill rolls up on us, and man, oh man, I am not prepared for this. I led with Zulrah to help him get some XP, but I'm switching Herblore into Pidgeotto, which is not the best strategy. I put Pidgeotto to sleep, lay on a Leech Seed, and he immediately wakes up and hits me with Sand Attack. I opt for a Sleep Powder and start questioning this challenge before finally deciding to use Vine Whip. He wakes up, hits me with another Sand Attack, but I keep on landing Vine Whips. He retaliates with Gust, I land another Vine Whip, and out comes his Charmander. I put it to sleep and go for a Leech Seed. Surprisingly, those Sand Attacks have not caused me to miss yet, but I didn't want to risk it anymore, so I swapped in Zulrah while he was asleep to reset Herblore's accuracy. I hit Charmander with Vine Whip, and he uses Ember after waking up, which doesn't end up doing that much damage. After landing another Vine Whip and sustaining another Ember, Leech Seed deals the final blow, and we now get a free opportunity to heal up against his Abra, since his Abra only knows Teleport. I take this as an opportunity to swap Zulrah in to get him some XP, swap Herblore back in, and knock him out with Vine Whip. Rattata is his last Pokemon, which strikes first with Quick Attack, but we make quick work of it with 2 Vine Whips and get revenge on our rival after losing our first battle back at Professor Oak's lab. We proceed onward through Nugget Bridge, and when we reach the last trainer, I decide to give our favorite fish a chance to defeat him all by himself. 30 times as a matter of fact. He didn't win, but we came away with 30 nuggets, which we delightfully sold. We make it to Bill's house, save him from spending the rest of his life as a Clefairy, and get rewarded with a ticket to the SS Anne. Next up is Misty's gym, and I lead in with Zulrah as we desperately inch him closer to relevancy, and then swap in Herblore to take down her Staryu with Razor Leaf. Starmie comes out, lands a Swift, and we one-shot it with Razor Leaf. So after demolishing that gym, we can now begin heading south to Vermilion City by way of everybody's favorite tunnel, defeat some trainers, and nearly get wiped by Camper Jeff's Raticate. The lad cornered me as I tried to sneak into Vermilion City, and after taking out his Spearow, I was left desperately trying to heal Herblore. I swapped out to sacrifice Zolrod and give Herblore a chance to heal up, brought back in Herblore, and finished Raticate with a Razor Leaf. I entered Vermilion City, got a bike voucher from this creepy old man, made my way back to Cerulean to get a bike, and came back to Vermilion to enter the SS Anne. After beating some trainers, we run into Kirill, and lead with none other than Zolra, just to switch back into Herblore and get once again blinded by a sand attack from his Pidgeotto. Except this time, I actually missed my Sleep Powder. He lands a Gust, and this time Herblore lands the Sleep Powder. I opt for a Razor Leaf, which misses twice, and then land the third one. He's still asleep, and I decide to go for a Leech Seed for whatever reason, and after sustaining another Gust, I land a Razor Leaf, and then Leech Seed finishes off Pidgeotto. In comes his Kadabra, which is a big threat to Herblore. He uses Disable, which stops me from using Razor Leaf, so I use Leech Seed on the next turn, but not before taking a Confusion. At this point, I can't do anything but let Herblore faint, and when Zolra comes out, I use a Revive on Herblore. Zolra faints, I bring Herblore in, he takes a Confusion, and knocks out Kadabra with a Razor Leaf. As if it couldn't get dicier, now Charmeleon comes out, and Herblore does manage to put him asleep, and on the next turn gets a one-hit KO with a critical hit Razor Leaf. His last Pokemon is Raticate, which we take care of with one last Razor Leaf, leaving us the victors. Now we can go talk to the captain, rub his back, learn the HM cut, which unfortunately has to be taught to Herblore since we don't have access to any other Pokemon that can learn it. But with our newly acquired HM, we can now take on Lieutenant Surge, but not before we spend what feels like an eternity trying to find the switches in these trash cans. It's time to take on Surge, and he leads with his Voltorb. I swap back in Herblore, he takes a Shockwave and a Sonic Boom, but isn't phased and one-shots it with Razor Leaf. Pikachu suffers the same fate as Voltorb, and now his Raichu comes out to start using Double Team. Herblore lands a Sleep Powder, and I decide to get greedy and swap Zolra in to get him some XP, and then Surge uses a full heal to wake up his Raichu. I swap back into Herblore and tank a Shockwave, but Raichu uses another Double Team, which got me a little bit worried, but Herblore didn't care and crit his Raichu with a Razor Leaf to secure the win. Now that we got our third badge, it's time to head to Celadon City. We start battling trainers on Route 9, and Zolra finally evolves into a Gyarados, and Herblore evolves into a Venusaur. I teach Zolra Water Pulse and enter into Rock Tunnel. After some fun in the dark, we make it out of Rock Tunnel and start heading west out of Lavender Town on Route 8, battle some more trainers, and finally make it to Celadon City. While we're here, we grab the tea to give to the thirsty guards and take a trip to this building to pick up a free level 25 Eevee. I'm going to evolve Eevee into Jolteon, so I name it Chaos Rune. While I'm here, I'm going to buy a Thunderstone to evolve it from the department store, but I'm going to wait to actually evolve it until level 30 since that's when Eevee can learn Bite. I ended up making a stop to the game corner and began throwing my money at the front desk for coins, which I'm going to use to get some valuable TMs and an Abra. However, as cool as Kadabra would be on the team, there is a Mr. Mime that's just a bit cooler that you can trade an Abra for on Route 2 at the other end of Diglett's Cave. So I do just that. But what's unique about this Mr. Mime is that since I got him from a trade, he gets a 50% XP boost, which should make the grind to get him caught up to speed a lot easier. Or, well, at least 50% easier. What's also unique is he gets a nickname that you can't change, so welcome to the team, Mimian? Mr. Mime it is. I make my way back to the game corner and tell this dork to back away from my favorite poster in the building. He runs off and I discover that this isn't just some ordinary cool poster, it's a poster that has a button that leads to a secret hideout. I promptly beat the snot out of all the trainers and grab the lift key from this sleaze, and then challenge the boss man Giovanni. Mr. Mime is already well on his way to becoming a powerhouse for the team at level 25 and knocks out Onyx with one hit using Magical Leaf. Kangaskhan comes in and uses Fake Out. I swap out Mr. Mime and bring in Herblore, who tanks a Mega Punch. I use a Razor Leaf and did not do as much damage as I thought. Kangaskhan lands another Mega Punch, and now I'm realizing I'm in danger. I go for a Sleep Powder and miss, but thankfully Kangaskhan misses a Mega Punch. I land a Sleep Powder and finish her off with a few Razor Leaves, but not before taking one more Mega Punch after she wakes up, which brings Herblore down to 7 HP. Rhyhorn is the last one up, which Herblore one-shots with ease. Giovanni disappears, and I pick up the Silph Scope, which we'll need at the Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town. But before that, we're going to take on the Celadon City Gym. I let Chaos Rune and Mr. Mime take care of the trainers, and then I start my battle with Erica. She leads with a Victory Bell, and I lead with Chaos Rune. I start off with Quick Attack, and quickly realize it's a terrible strategy as she uses Giga Drain and heals back to full. She lands a Stun Spore, and I begin throwing Sand Attacks until her Victory Bell is legally blind. Once I'm content with his decrepit vision, I swap into Mr. Mime, set up a light screen, and send out a Psy Beam to knock it out in one hit. Next in is Tangela, who survives a Psybeam with what must have been 1 HP. She lands a Poison Powder and then heals back to full with a Hyper Potion. But this time, Mr. Mime knocks it out with 1 hit using Psybeam. Last up is her Vileplume, and Mr. Mime knocks it out with 1 hit thanks to a critical hit Psybeam. Man, is this dude great or what? He's freaking killing it. With the 4th badge acquired, we now head to the Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town. Along the way, we send some trainers packing and run into our rival. I send out Chaos Rune to try and blind his Pidgeotto with Sand Attack, and realize I can't do that since he has Keen Eye. Whoops! He hits me with a Gust, and I start using Quick Attack. He retaliates with a Sand Attack of his own just to rub in the fact that I can't use it, and I land a critical hit Quick Attack, which he then follows up with a critical hit Gust. One more Quick Attack does the job, and Chaos Rune levels up to 29. Next up is his Gyarados, which I use Quick Attack on, and nearly died to from a Thrash. I swap in my Gyarados, Zora, which cuts his attack down with Intimidate, and use Dragon Rage. His Thrash continues, and I wipe him out with another Dragon Rage. Execute comes in, and I land a Bite that puts him in the red. He misses a Hypnosis, and I take care of him with one more Bite. Kadabra comes in, and I tell Zora to keep up his infatuation with biting, and after taking a Confusion from Kadabra, he bites him another time, puts Kadabra in the ground, and levels up to 27. Last up is Charmeleon, and Zora lands a critical hit Water Pulse to win the battle. After sending that dork out of the tower, I continue forward and battle the Channelers. Along the way, Eevee reaches level 30 and learns Bite, and I evolve him into Jolteon, and teach him Thunderbolt. We make it to the Ghost, who we uncover to be Marowak by using the Silph Scope, and send it on to the Afterlife with some Water Pulses from Zora. We head up the stairs, wipe out some Grunts and their annoying Zubats, and save Mr. Fuji. Mr. Fuji gives us the Poke Flute, and we begin our journey to Silph Co. As I was battling in Silph Co, I decided to teach Ice Beam to Zora since his move pool is lacking, and we're coming across some good old Zubats again that he can certainly benefit from beating for some XP. 1-hit KO on a Zubat. That is much better. After a half hour of battling, I nearly died trying to find the beds to heal in, but finally managed to find them, and now we're ready to take on our rival another time. He leads with Pidgeot, and I lead with Chaos Rune. After he lands a Quick Attack, Chaos Rune fries him with a Thunderbolt, but doesn't get the KO. He endures one more Quick Attack before putting him away with a Thunderbolt. His Gyarados is next, but it's put away with ease from a Thunderbolt. Execute comes out, and Chaos Rune lands a Bite that flinches him and finishes his Execute with a second Bite. At this point, I'm feeling great. Chaos Rune sweeping this dude, reaches level 34. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, that's right, he has an Alakazam. But for whatever dumb reason, he uses Future Sight after taking a Bite that brought him down to half HP, so Chaos Rune takes the W with a second Bite. Charizard is his last Pokemon, and after landing a Thunderbolt, Chaos Rune falls to his Flamethrower. I bring in Zora, who takes a Future Sight attack and a Flamethrower, but manages to tank it and lands a Water Pulse in retaliation to secure the victory. Oh my good god, why is Zora so weak? I mean, I get he's a physical attacker, but come on, dude, you couldn't give me one more little oomph of power in that Water Pulse? Charizard finishes him with a Flamethrower, and now I'm in trouble. I figured Herblore would surely faint from a Flamethrower, and he's obviously outsped by Charizard, so I just leave it up to Mr. Mime, who also gets outsped and dies in one hit to the Flamethrower. Well, thankfully, I'm using items, so I do use a Revive on Chaos Rune. Herblore gets one shot, but Chaos Rune is able to come in and clean up with a Quick Attack. And now I can get the 5th member of my team, Lapras, which I'm going to be naming Celadon since I'm running out of ideas, and it's blue, so if you know, you know. I make it to Giovanni, and we get straight to business. He leads with Nidorino, and I send out Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime lands a Psybeam that brings him to yellow, and he uses a Fury attack. One more Psybeam does the trick, and now he brings out Nidoqueen. I throw out another Psybeam, and Nidoqueen drops Mr. Mime with a Body Slam. I send out Gyarados to cut down or attack with Intimidate, tank a Body Slam, and send out a Water Pulse. Nidoqueen decides to use Tail Whip back to back to back, and Zora gets spoon-fed a W, but to my surprise, Zora lands a 1-hit KO on his Rhyhorn with a Water Pulse and reaches level 33. Giovanni sends out his last Pokemon, Kangaskhan, and I try to go for a Freeze with Ice Beam, which doesn't work. He uses Rage, and I opt for a Dragon Rage. The rage continues, and I try going for a flinch with a bite, which also doesn't work, and finally get taken down with a Mega Punch. I throw out Chaos Rune and send out a Thunderbolt, which also doesn't get the job done. Kangaskhan uses Mega Punch, but misses, and I secure the victory with a Quick Attack. My reward for saving the President is a Master Ball, which is fantastic in a no-catching challenge. I stop at the Pokemon Center to heal up, and I begin making my way to the dojo to get our final Pokemon. Mr. Mime makes quick work of the trainers and takes out the dojo's leader with ease. I decide to pick Hitmonchan since he's cooler than Hitmonlee, in my humble opinion of course, and I name him Torag. Before Sabrina's gym, I review my team a bit and I decide to teach him Brick Break and Bulk Up, not that that's going to be useful for her gym, and then I teach Celadon and Thunderbolt. I head into Sabrina's gym and start taking on the trainers. I make it to Sabrina and challenge her to a spoon bending competition, but we settle on a Pokemon battle. She leads with Kadabra and I lead with Celadon. Her Kadabra sets up a Reflect, and I land a Body Slam that paralyzes him. Unlucky for me, he has Synchronize, which means Celadon is also paralyzed. We both lose a turn to Paralysis, and then she uses Future Sight. I land a Confuse Ray, and on the next turn he hits himself in Confusion, and Celadon lands a critical hit Thunderbolt to knock him out. Mr. Mime comes out next and sets up a Calm Mind. Celadon loses a turn to Paralysis, gets hit by the Future Sight attack from Kadabra, and she uses another Calm Mind. This is starting to look real ugly. I send out a Confuse Ray, which lands. Her Mr. Mime decides to use Barrier. Okay, and then Celadon sends out a Body Slam. On the next turn, her Mr. Mime hurts itself, but I lose a turn to Paralysis. The exact same thing happens on the next turn, and then she goes for a Psybeam, which Celadon manages to tank. Celadon lands a Body Slam that paralyzes Mr. Mime, which is clutch, and then I swap in Zora. Zora takes a Psybeam and retaliates with a Bite that was more like a nibble, because it did hardly anything. I go for a Dragon Rage to finish off Mr. Mime, and she sends out Venomoth. I go for an Ice Beam, and Venomoth uses Psybeam, which doesn't do much, but it does confuse Zora. I opt to swap in Mr. Mime to set up a Light Screen because I know where Alakazam is fiending to come in and sweep my team right now. After taking a Leech Life, I use Psybeam to knock her out, and in comes her level 43 Alakazam. She uses Calm Mind, and I go for Magical Leaf. Why I did that, I wish I could tell you. And now she sets up another Calm Mind. I land a Psybeam hoping to confuse her Alakazam to no avail. Alakazam uses Psychic, which isn't doing much to Mr. Mime thanks to Resistance and Light Screen, and I go for another Psybeam. On the next turn, Light Screen wears off, so I choose to set up another. Alakazam uses Future Sight, and on the next turn she uses another Psychic that takes down Mr. Mime. I bring in Chaos Rune, who is torn between using Bite and Thunderbolt. I go for Bite, and I get the flinch, and then Chaos Rune gets hit with the Future Sight that nearly KOs him. I go for Thunderbolt, but it brings her to the red, and she goes for Future Sight. She gets my hopes up, because she ends up using a Hyper Potion to get back to full HP. I use another Thunderbolt and paralyze Alakazam, but thanks to her Synchronize, now Chaos Rune is paralyzed. She uses a full heal, and I go for the Bite. The Future Sight lands, taking out Chaos Rune, and I have no choice now but to watch her Alakazam mutilate Herblore and Celadon. She decides to get my hopes up again when I bring out Torag because she wastes 2 turns in a row using Future Sight, but then she just heals back to full again and finishes the rest of my team. Ouch. In comes the second attempt, so the second time around I decide to start with Chaos Rune. I bring her Kadabra to the red with Thunderbolt and she uses Calm Mind. After using a Hyper Potion, I hit her Kadabra with 2 Thunderbolts, which manages to get the KO. Out comes Mr. Mime, and I send out a Thunderbolt, and she goes for a Calm Mind. I send out a second Thunderbolt, which brings her to the red, and she sends out a Psybeam. The next turn, she uses a Hyper Potion, and I use Bite. I follow it up with a Thunderbolt, which leaves Mr. Mime paralyzed, and she gets paralyzed on the same turn. One more Thunderbolt does the trick, and now we face up against Venomoth. I use Thunderbolt, she misses a Supersonic, and I KO her with one more Thunderbolt. Okay, much cleaner start, but now it's time for a race. I use Thunderbolt and bring her Alakazam to half HP. She uses Psychic, which KOs Chaos Rune, and I send in Celadon next. I could go for Perish Song, but I decided to get greedy and use a Confuse Ray after taking a Psychic. My problem the last time I fought her was letting the Calm Mind stack, thinking I could get Celadon with some XP, and I decide for whatever stupid reason to do the exact same thing again. And I completely forgot after landing the Confusion that the full heal can snap you out of it, which she does use. Thankfully, Celadon lands a Body Slam that causes paralysis, so now he's stuck with it. Alakazam finishes Celadon with a Psychic, but that's perfectly fine because he's just in range for Torag to finish him off with a Brick. Oh, no he's not. But it doesn't matter because he uses Future Sight and Torag cleans it up with a Mach Punch. All of that effort and Torag doesn't even level up. But nonetheless, we beat the gym, and this is a big deal because we now get Calm Mind, which I'm immediately putting on Mr. Mime. I opt to get rid of Light Screen since Mr. Mime has low physical defense, meaning Reflect will probably be more useful down the line. While I'm in Saffron City, I pick up the Psychic TM from the Psychic's house and give it to Celadon since Mr. Mime's going to learn it at level 43. I start making my way down Route 12 and let Torag get some XP. I come across the Snorlax and have to defeat it since we're not allowed to catch it, and it leaves behind leftovers in this spot, but to my disappointment, you can only find it if you have the item finder, which unfortunately for me requires 30 different species of Pokemon in the Pokedex to acquire it, and that's not going to happen in this challenge. After plenty of more trainer battles, I make it to Fuchsia City and head into the Safari Zone. I developed a bad habit of mashing the A button while playing this game and nearly caught a Venonat, so we're just going to pretend that didn't happen and move on. And then I do the exact same thing, except I did catch a Nidoran. So, you know, hey, oh well, we're just going to have to let it rot on the PC and ignore that. I find a Quick Claw, the Gold Teeth, and the HM for Surf, which I teach to Celadon and Zora. After returning to some training, Celadon learns Ice Beam, and after even more training, I decide it's time to take on Koga's gym in Fuchsia City. I make it to Koga, and he sends out his coughing. I lead with Celadon and use Psychic, handling it with ease. He sends out Muck, and I lead with another Psychic, but don't even get it to half HP. Muck uses Toxic, leaving Celadon badly poisoned. I use another Psychic, which he tanks, and then Muck uses Minimize. My next Psychic misses, and he goes for a Sludge. At this point, I'm just hoping I don't miss and he doesn't start spamming Minimize, but thankfully I land the Psychic and take him out. Next up is another Coughing, and unfortunately the Toxic Poison is taking a toll on Celadon. I one-shot the Coughing, but it comes with a price as Celadon faints to the poison. His ace is Wheezing. I send out Mr. Mime and use Psybeam, which puts him in the red, while he goes for a Toxic. He uses a Hyper Potion, and I hit him with another Psybeam that puts him in the red. Koga decides to stall once again by using another Hyper Potion, and I use another Psybeam that puts him in the red. But this time he's out of potions, and Mr. Mime secures the W with one more Psybeam. Now we can surf to Cinnabar Island, but before doing so, I need to make a quick stop to the Warden's house to get strength by giving him his teeth back. That's one heck of a trade. Now I need to decide who to teach strength to since I need it to get through Victory Road. It pains me to do it, but we're going to put it on Torag since it just makes the most sense out of the Pokemon on my team. Electric moves are all based off the special attack stat in Gen 3, meaning Thunder Punch sucks on Torag, so we replace it and move forward. I head south to Route 19 and begin swimming towards Cinnabar. I make it to the Seafoam Islands cave and spend what felt like an hour of going through this cave just to pop out on the other side of it, and continue swimming towards Cinnabar until I finally make it to Cinnabar Island. I stop by the Cinnabar lab to revive Omanite from the Helix fossil, but we're not going to use them, so to the box he goes. Now we need to go into the mansion and grab the secret key for Blaine's gym. While adventuring in the mansion, Torag reaches level 32 and learns Sky Uppercut. I find the secret key and Solar Beam, which I'll put on Herblore since he doesn't learn it until level 65. I head back to the gym, and Celadon starts sweeping all of the trainers. I opt for Celadon over Zolra since she's feeling way more useful and is likely going to be a lot more impactful come the Elite Four, so I'm getting her all the XP I can get. Now it's time to take on Blaine. He leads with Growlithe, who misses a Fire Blast while Celadon retaliates with a Surf that knocks it out in one hit. Ponyta comes out and lands a Fire Blast, and Celadon sends another Surf that one-hit KOs Ponyta. He sends out Rapidash and lands a Fire Blast which burns Celadon. Celadon sends out a Surf that gets him into the red, and Blaine uses a Hyper Potion. The exact same thing happens on the next turn, but now Celadon is getting too low from the burn. I swap into Torag, who managed to avoid the Fire Blast, and he beats Rapidash with a Mach Punch. Blaine's ace is Arcanine at a staggering level 47, and since Torag doesn't have a chance here, I opt for the free switch strategy by letting him die to bring Zolra in. Arcanine lands a Fire Blast, and I retaliate with Surf, but don't even get him to half HP. He goes for another Fire Blast, which lands, and I bring him to the red with a Surf. I decide to roll the dice and go for a Surf, hoping he misses, and he actually does miss, but it was with a takedown, which allows Zolra to close it out with one last Surf. After leaving the gym, Bill begs me to go on a trip with him to the Sevi Islands, and I tell him to go pound sand. Now we need to head back to Viridian City to take on Giovanni one final time. I forgot to get the HM for Fly, so I need to take the scenic route north of Cinnabar. I make it back to Pallet Town, reach Viridian City, and enter Giovanni's gym. I make it to Giovanni, and he sends out Rhyhorn, who gets one-shot by Celadon's Surf. He sends out another Rhyhorn, who suffers the same fate. Next up is his Nidoqueen, and after tanking an Earthquake, I bring her to the red with a Surf. He heals up, and I use a Psychic to avoid triggering him to use a potion again. Celadon takes another Earthquake and finishes Nidoqueen off with a second Psychic. Nidoking comes in, and he hits me with an Earthquake, but Celadon is still standing and knocks him out in one hit with Surf. Dugtrio comes out and is going to outspeed and KO Celadon with an Earthquake. I send out Herblore, who tanks an Earthquake and knocks out Dugtrio with one Razor Leaf. At this point, we have all the badges we need to take on the Elite Four, but we're kind of under-leveled. But whatever, we're going to take on a rival anyway. He leads with Pidgeot, and I send out Chaos Rune, who takes a quick attack and returns a Thunderbolt that brings him to the red. I land one more Thunderbolt, and he sends out Rhyhorn next. I swap into Zolra, who avoids a Horn Drill, and he one-hit KOs it with Surf. Execute comes out, and Zolra puts him in the yellow with an Ice Beam. Execute paralyzes Zolra with Stun Spore, but it doesn't stop him from landing an Ice Beam on the next turn to get the KO. Out comes Alakazam, and I'm immediately having flashbacks to Sabrina. He starts off with a Calm Mind, and I go for Ice Beam, which does absolutely nothing. He uses Psychic and KOs Zolra, prompting me to send in Chaos Rune. I go for Thunderbolt, which doesn't do enough, and he KOs me with Psychic. I send out Mr. Mime, hoping I can make Alakazam confused with Psybeam. He tanks a Psychic, tickles him with Psybeam, and then Alakazam uses Disable. Oh boy. He gets a Psychic that puts me to 5 HP, and I go for a Magical Leaf. At this point, I'm thinking all hope is lost, but he goes for a Future Sight, which allows me to get another Magical Leaf off, And then Alakazam goes for another Future Sight, which lets me get another Magical Leaf off that had to have put him at 1 HP. But it's all okay because Torag is going to come in and secure the victory with Mach... Oh my god, I thought it was over when that Future Sight hit. Anyways, Torag lands the Mach Punch, and his level 53 Charizard comes out. Torag goes down, and I send in Celadon. She takes a Flamethrower that burns her, and uses Surf, which brings him under half HP. After enduring another Flamethrower, she lands a second Surf, securing the KO. His last Pokemon is Gyarados, who lands a Hydro Pump, which leaves me Herblore as my last Pokemon. He tanks a Hydro Pump, lands a Sleep Powder, and I use Leech Seed before spamming Razor Leafs to get the win. Kirill runs off, and now I need to start thinking about my team's moveset before taking on the Elite Four. For one, Venusaur still has Cut, and that means I need to go back to Fuchsia City to have the move deleter remove it, so I can replace it with Solar Beam. However, I don't have Fly, so I have to go north to Route 2, through Diglett's Cave, north past Vermilion, west out of Saffron, west out of Celadon, pick up the Fly HM from the north, and then head south and dodge all of the bikers on Route 17 to get to Fuchsia City. Once I go there, I need to delete Cut, add Fly to Gyarados, and wow, I guess I'm an idiot because he can't even learn it. So it looks like I'm going to have to ride all the way back to Viridian and enter Victory Road, but I suppose it's not all bad. My team is weak, and I can use the XP from Route 17 to get a bit stronger. We begin our trek to Viridian and make it to Diglett's Cave, and the most unbelievable thing happened to me. I found a shiny Diglett. Never in my life of playing Pokemon have I ever found a full odd shiny out in the wild like this when just casually playing. But because it's a no catching challenge, we have to... Yeah, right. You think I'm seriously going to pass up a shiny? We won't use it on the team, but that's just too cool to pass up, so we'll just have to let it rot in the box with the other misfits. After catching our shiny friend, I realized we need Cut to get out from this area, so I just wasted all of my time doing that. But hey, we got a shiny out of it, which still blows my mind. So I go back through Diglett's Cave, north out of Vermilion, through the underground path, north to Cerulean City, past the Nugget Bridge, swim to Route 4, enter Mount Moon, make it out of Mount Moon, head west to Pewter City, south through the Viridian Forest, and we finally make it to Viridian City. Now the only thing left to do is make it through Victory Road, and after some fun pushing boulders and battling trainers, I make it to Indigo Plateau. I hand out some items where I felt necessary, take one last look at my team, and continue on to Lorelei. She leads with her Dugong, and I lead with Chaos Rune. I go for a Thunderbolt and bring her to the yellow, and she lands a Surf. One more Thunderbolt does the trick, and now she's sending out Cloyster. But one Thunderbolt is all it takes to KO her. Slowbro comes out and I continue the Thunderbolts, bringing her into the red. She lands a Yawn and uses a full restore. I use another Thunderbolt, once again bringing her to the red before falling asleep. I use an Awakening, but fall to a critical hit Surf from Slowbro. I bring Herblore to finish the job with a Razor Leaf, and then she brings out Lapras. Lapras lands a Confuse Ray, and Herblore hits her with Sleep Powder. She wakes up on the next turn and nearly KOs me with an Ice Beam, and I hit myself in confusion again. Herblore faints, and I bring in Celadon. Her Lapras uses Body Slam, and my superior Lapras uses Thunderbolt. Next turn, she paralyzes me with a Body Slam, which makes this a lot closer than I was hoping it would be. I continue with Thunderbolt, which triggers her Citrus Berry. She does another Body Slam, and I land a Thunderbolt, bringing her to the low yellow, but she uses a full restore on the next turn. We continue trading blows, and I end up landing a Paralysis. I use a full restore, and she misses a turn from Paralysis. Another Thunderbolt brings her to the red, and I'm paralyzed again thanks to a Body Slam. I contemplate using a full heal, but opt to just go for it and see how I fare against Jinx. And that was the right move, as I land the Thunderbolt on Lapras and don't miss a single turn as I lay down 5 Thunderbolts in a row on Jinx to get the win. I head on to Bruno and send out Mr. Mime against his Onix. Mr. Mime lands a one-hit KO with Magical Leaf, and he sends out Hitmonchan. He manages to survive a Psychic, and to my dismay, he lands a speed reduction on Mr. Mime thanks to Rock Tomb, which allows him to get a Sky Uppercut in on the next turn. Mr. Mime survives and finishes him with a Psychic. Next up is Hitmonlee. I decide to let Mr. Mime fall and bring in Herblore to try and land a Sleep Powder. After landing it, I use it as an opportunity to get Mr. Mime back to full health. I even get greedy and try swapping him in on the next turn, hoping Hitmonlee would stay asleep, but he wakes up and lands a mean Mega Kick. Mr. Mime uses Psychic but doesn't get the KO, leading him to fall again. I bring out Jolteon to clean up with a Thunderbolt, and Bruno brings out another Onix. I swap into Zora to avoid the incoming Earthquake and give Mr. Mime back to health. Knowing I can't do much with Zora, I heal up Herblore too. Zora faints, and I bring in Mr. Mime to knock out Onix with a Magical Leaf. Out comes his last Pokemon, Machamp. I go for a Psychic, and Machamp goes for a Bulk Up, which was the best case scenario. One more Psychic finishes it, and we are moving on to Agatha. I lead with Mr. Mime against Agatha, and she leads with Gengar. I start the battle hot with a crit to knock out Gengar, and then she brings in Golbat, who lands a Poison from Poison Fang. Psychic nearly knocks it out, but it lands a crucial special defense drop. She goes for a full restore, and I'm able to knock it out in one hit with a Psychic thanks to the special defense reduction. Arbok comes in, and I continue to spam Psychic with Mr. Mime. I bring her to the red, but Arbok finishes me with an Iron Tail. Jolteon comes in for cleanup, and now another Gengar is brought out. I land Thunderbolt, and she retaliates with Sludge Bomb, landing another poison. I get a lucky crit here and knock out Gengar with a Thunderbolt, and that leaves Agatha with only her Haunter left. I choose to go with a Thunder Wave here to make sure whoever comes in next has a fighting chance. Haunter gets paralyzed, and after landing a bite, she decides to use Curse and just give me the win. Alright, I'll take it. At this point, I need to think about who I should be prioritizing leading up to Lance and our rival. My team is definitely not leveled as they should be, but I can make it work, and I have 5 rare candies at my disposal still. I decided to split the rare candies between Celadon and Chaos Rune, and figured if I lose and have to retrain, that it would be easier to get Mr. Mime caught up since he has boosted XP. Now it's time to move on to Lance. I decide to lead with Celadon against her Gyarados, and after taking a Dragon Rage, use a Thunderbolt that brings him to the red. Probably should have used an Ether before I got here, seeing as I only have 2 Thunderbolts left, but oh well. He uses a full restore, and I use another Thunderbolt, which paralyzes him. I finish him with an Ice Beam, and then he sends out Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl uses Ancient Power, and Celadon counters with an Ice Beam that doesn't knock him out. I swap in Zora to intimidate him and heal Celadon to full. Zora faints, he lands the boost from Ancient Power, and back in comes Lapras. Celadon tanks the Ancient Power and finishes Aerodactyl with an Ice Beam. Dragonair comes in and uses Safeguard. Celadon nearly KOs it with Ice Beam. The next turn, Dragonair uses Outrage, and Ice Beam takes it down. Lance's second Dragonair comes in and uses Outrage, and I land an Ice Beam that does get the KO this time. Knowing I can't go first against Dragonite, I sacrifice Herblore so I can get Celadon back to full without having to waste another turn reviving her. Herblore faints, Dragonite's Outrage ends, and now he's confused, and decides to use Safeguard, allowing Celadon to land an Ice Beam. He heals with a Citrus Berry, snaps out of confusion already, and lands a Hyper Beam. But it's no problem for Celadon as she tanks it and secures the win with one last Ice Beam. And that brings us here to our final battle. It's time to see if we can beat our rival and put this challenge to rest. I lead with Jolteon and use Thunderbolt against his Pidgeot, who survives with what has to be 1 HP. He hits with Aerial Ace, uses a full restore, and the next Thunderbolt takes him out in 1 hit. Rhydon comes in, and I swap to Herblore, but I'm not really sure why I did that because he can't tank an Earthquake. So he faints, and I bring in Celadon to land a 1-hit KO with Surf. Executor comes in, and he lands a Sleep Powder. I decide to stay in to try and land an Ice Beam. He sets up a Light Screen, and I manage to wake up right away and land a critical hit, knocking him out through the Light Screen. I mean, what a unit Lapras is. Here comes the fun part, Alakazam. I try landing Thunderbolts in hopes of paralysis as I stall out the Light Screen. He gets a special defense drop on me from Psychic and nearly KOs me with the second Psychic. The next turn he goes for a Future Sight, giving me another chance to land a Thunderbolt. Then he does it again, and then he does it again, but I still couldn't manage to paralyze him. His Future Sight takes me out, but the good news is he's just in the sweet spot HP-wise to not use a full restore, which allows Chaos Rune to come in and finish him off with a bite. He sends out Gyarados, and Chaos Rune easily 1-hit KOs with Thunderbolt. And now it's time for his Charizard. Chaos Rune goes first, landing a Thunderbolt, but it's not enough. Charizard lands a Fire Blast that takes out Chaos Rune. I bring in Mr. Mime, and Charizard heals with a Citrus Berry. I'm hoping for a Fire Blast miss here, and he does, allowing Mr. Mime to land a Psychic, which ends up being a critical hit to get the win. And with that, we did it. We beat Pokemon LeafGreen without catching a single Just ignore that, would you please? In all seriousness, this was an awesome challenge. Stars of the show here, definitely Chaos Rune, Celadon, and Mr. Mime. And for being as low levels as they were, they still managed to deal out a lot of damage. I'd love to do another challenge like this, or maybe even a Nuzlocke, so let me know if there's something you want to see. But thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later.